This is today's lesson, or this afternoon's lesson. Actually, I'm recording it this morning, but it's for this afternoon. So I hope you're all well. So this is the form our lessons are going to take. We might do some interactive things later, but I think the best thing is to talk over a presentation because you can watch it several times. If you're in different time zones, which is understandable, you can watch it in your respective time zone. And I think it's just going to be the best way moving forward. This may change over time, but I think for now, this is how we're going to start today's double. Okay, so as you're aware, we're starting a brand new unit today. We've done section 1, section 2, and now we're going to move into another microeconomic unit, section 3, which is all about the individual as a producer, a consumer, banking, firms, got a bit of business studies in there. So yeah, that's what we're going to move it on to, and hopefully we'll make the best of it despite having no actual content for this month. Okay, so anyway, let's get started. Keep this video as short as possible. So first thing I want you to do is open up the new workbook. So I've tried to make an electronic version of the workbook. You would have got a printed version of this, and we can print this later. And you can see the lines here, you'll have to delete and just type. And it's not formatted as well because it was in Word and now it's in Google. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, you can just format it and edit it as you go through. Okay. It's going to be a lesson by lesson basis because I've got to copy and paste it in and redo the pictures and yeah, anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. So this is today's double work. You can open this up, you'll get a copy each, and then we can print this out at the end. Okay, so first topic is all about the role of money. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is examine this picture, have a good look at it, and then think about this question here. Even if you've never heard of this word before, what do you think a barter system is? Okay, and what do you think, if you already know a little extension, what do you think are some limitations of such a system? Okay, so pause the video there, go back to the workbook, and you can fill in some information in these boxes. Just as a little warm-up activity today, as if we were in class, okay? So what are we actually trying to achieve today? Well, there's two parts to it. So the first bit is to be able to define money and be able to explain 4 functions. There's 4 very distinct functions using very specific vocabulary, as always in economics. It's all about economic vocabulary, and you need to be able to explain and remember each of these 4 functions, okay? And be able to assess the suitability of different commodities or different items for use as money. And why do we use notes and coins and electronic means to pay? So a barter system then, and hopefully you've already filled in that section. So money is basically anything that is widely accepted or used for the exchange of goods and services. So it can be widely exchanged for goods and services. So that could include notes, coins, also credit cards, debit cards, octopus payments, things like PayPal, anything that is widely accepted in order to pay for goods and services that you might want. Whereas a barter system is exchanging one good for another. Okay, so as you can see, this fellow on the left here has got some books. This lady on the right's got some bananas, and they're going to exchange that because they want each other's goods. Okay, you can probably see straight away that that's not a very good system. So your man's got a chicken in the background, the other man's got an oven. That's not really going to be very good, is it? Because it's going to be slow. You might not be very good at producing specific goods. And it's just a very slow, antiquated, and it's not going to be an efficient way of gaining goods and services. Okay, it's going to be very slow, and it's going to be very negotiation based. So basically, that's why we use money. So we've got this widely accepted means. So you can walk into a shop and everything has a value. You can make comparisons, and that is why we use money, obviously, rather than a barter system. So money obviously needs to be divisible. It needs to be transferable. It needs to be transportable. It needs to be hard lasting. It needs to be hard to fake. But it has 4 very distinct features. And you need to know these 4 distinct features and the specific vocabulary, as we've already said. So the first one is it needs to be a medium of exchange. So it needs to be widely accepted. It needs to be accepted within your entire country in order to purchase goods and services, as we've said. Okay, it's probably one of the most important things, that you need to be able to exchange $8 for a bar of chocolate. You need to be able to exchange $23 for a ride on an NTR. Okay, so it needs to be widely accepted as a medium of exchange. And you need to know those specific words. Medium of exchange, it simply means that it's widely accepted everywhere in order to exchange for goods and services. It needs to be a unit of account. This means that you can make comparisons. So you can say that one smartphone is $5,000 and another smartphone is $10,000. Each has the money has a comparable value, and then you can apply that to all goods and services. Okay, so it's a unit of account, and it gives all goods and services a value. Okay, so a unit of account is the second function. It needs to be a store of value, which means over time, it needs to maintain its value. That $100 today is going to be worth $100 tomorrow. It's not going to change. It's not going to go down in value because it stores its value. If you know what inflation is, which obviously we'll look at later in the year, obviously inflation erodes the value of money, but $100 is still worth $100. It would just buy less in the future. Okay, if I've lost you there, don't worry, we'll come back to inflation later in the year. But it needs to be a store of value. Okay, so a $1,000 note, if such a thing exists, I think it does, it's still going to be worth $1,000 in the future. Okay, and the fourth function of money is deferred payments. So this means that you can delay purchases and you can pay for things later. Okay, so you can lend money, you can borrow money, and you can use things like credit cards, loans, mortgages, and defer payments. So delay payments to a future date. Okay, and they're the four functions. As I've already said several times, you need to know those specific terms. Give yourself a little test at the end when we get there, but you need to be able to explain those four functions. Okay, so then we've got some little space for the definitions we've just discussed. A little task where you need to identify which function of money is being used, and then we've got a little task here evaluating is using shells like you might find on the beach. Is that a good example of money? Okay, so you can read this short extract, and then you've got a table down here comparing four different commodities or things that you might use as money, and then 10 if you think it's really good, it's a really good example of that, or 1 if it doesn't need it at all. Okay, so gold coins, for example, not that great for divisibility. Okay, imagine one coin is one coin, you don't have different size coins, it's not going to be very good, so I'd give it a low number. Okay, whereas banknotes, we know we've got lots of banknotes, we go all the way down to a cent, all the way up to $1,000, so that's very divisible, isn't it? Okay, so work your way through that. Pause the video now and have a go through that, and then you'll evaluate which one was the best and why do you think it's the best. So then we've got another little bit of what about digital money stored in bank accounts and that's just using bank cards. Is that a good use of money? Is that a good function of money using things like Octopus, Tap and Pay, Apple Pay, whatever Samsung's version of paying for your smartphone is? Is that a good use of money? Okay, and that brings us to the end of the first section. So work your way through that part of the textbook, of the workbook, pretty straightforward. Okay, so money is just anything that's widely accepted. You need to know those four functions, and you need to be able to explain what each one means. That's important. Okay. Okay, so that's the task, Okay, so you can test yourself a little bit here. So think of times when you've used the four functions of money, and write one sentence for each function. So when have you exemplified using the four functions of money? Okay, so there's some answer there, so we'll skip over that. So again, without checking your workbook, what is money? So you can just turn away from your laptop for a minute. What is money? What are the four functions of money? What are the specific vocabulary and what does each one mean? Okay, so just pause the video there for a minute and just think to yourself, say it out loud, what is money and what are the four functions of money? So just can you remember that without looking back at your workbook? Have you actually got that in your memory for now? Okay. So there are your answers, obviously. So anything that's widely accepted or used to exchange for goods or services, and the four functions are medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account, and deferred payments. Okay, obviously. So second half of today is we're going to talk about banking because that's quite a small topic. I'm guessing that's not taking you an entire double lesson to work through that. So the second thing we're going to do today is talk about banking. Okay, so obviously a step on from money is banking. So we're going to be able to we want to be able to define banks, to be able to explain why banking is an important part of the economy, and to be able to describe the uses and functions of a commercial bank. So again, we've got another starter activity in the workbook. So the workbook starts again. So another starter, another picture. So is hiding your money under the bed a good idea? What do you think? Is that a good idea? Why would it? What problems could there be? What might you be giving up by putting the money under your bed rather than in a bank? Why would that be? Is that a good or bad idea? Okay, so again, pause the video, have a think, have a look through. What do you think? Is this a good idea or not? Oops. Okay, so a bank is a financial intermediary that brings together customers' deposits. So that means people putting money into the bank that they wish to save, and they wish for the security and the interest that putting in a bank would give to the consumer, and customers that want to borrow. Okay, so it's an intermediary between people wanting to save their money and put it somewhere safe, and those wishing to borrow money to maybe supplement their income or maybe to buy large purchases. So the way the business cycle works is the way the banking cycle works is that businesses and consumers deposit money. That means put in. Anytime we use deposit, it means put in. So businesses and consumers put in money in order to gain interest and keep it safe as well. The banks place some of the money in their reserves, so they put some away for people that are wanting to use ATMs or take cash out. But the most of it gets lent out to businesses and consumers in the form of overdrafts, in the form of mortgages, loans, credit cards. So they take most of the money and lend it out. And then that money that's lent out is then spent, obviously by businesses and consumers, and then it gets placed back in the bank in terms of deposits. Okay, so actually, if everybody went to the ATM and went to the bank and tried to withdraw their money, most banks wouldn't have enough money in their reserves. Okay, it would be called a run on the banks, where if everybody tried to pull their money out, then they wouldn't actually have the liquidity. They wouldn't actually have the cash to do that. So because most of it is lent out, it's with consumers. So that puts banks in quite a vulnerable position. Okay, so yeah, that's how the banking cycle works. That's how banks operate. Okay, and they gain money, they gain profits from the interest, the extra money that's paid back when a bank lends out money. Okay, so credit cards might be 20, 30% a year interest. A mortgage might be 2 or 3%, but that's not usually on a large amount of money, so it's still quite lucrative. Overdrafts can often be 40, 50%, and loans anywhere in between. So it's the extra money that's paid back when money is lent out. So commercial banks, what do we mean by commercial bank? They're the banks that we see every single day. Okay, so HSBC, Bank of China, Lloyds Bank is a UK bank. So it's the everyday banks used by consumers and businesses. We call those commercial banks, also known as high street banks. Okay, so the high street banks, because obviously they're often on the high street. Yes, sometimes called a retail bank or a high street bank. So again, what I want you to do then, I've already mentioned some things as I was introducing this topic, but pause the video and have a think. What are some of the functions of commercial banks? So we've got, also you can fill in this bit here. So we've got the definition, we've got to fill in the gaps of how the banking cycle works that we've just described. And actually the function's already there. So just have a think, what are the roles of commercial banks? What kind of services do they offer? And that is about it for today. Okay, so you can have a read through this, and then we just got a little bit about central banks. We're not going to talk about too much about central banks today because it's a huge theme of sections 5 and 6, which we'll look at after we finish this section. But yeah, just do a bit of research. What is a central bank? So we're talking about the Bank of England, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. Final task is find out what a central bank is and define it there. Okay, so once you have finished that, I will share the spreadsheet the economic spreadsheet, and you just need to put it green when you've filled in this entire workbook. This should be reasonable to do in a double lesson. Okay, remember you've got the online textbook, so if you need some extra support, you can just go to classwork, revision materials, electronic textbook, and I think this is something that's going to help you a lot over the next few weeks. Okay, so you can see the individual as a producer and consumer here. We've got money, and then I think banking is in that same chapter as well. Okay, so any problems, I'm going to be online all lesson, all afternoon I'll be online, so you can either drop a comment or you can email me directly and I'll reply straight away. I'll be online the whole time. So yeah, any problems, let me know. But hopefully that should be pretty straightforward and this video is not too long. Okay, but the main thing is I want you to know what is money, what are the 4 functions, what is banking, what is the banking cycle, what is a retail bank, and what services do retail banks offer. Okay, so hopefully that's nice and straightforward. Have a nice afternoon.